Hi, welcome to Peak Moment. I'm Janaea Donaldson, and my guest today is a supervisor in a county in California that's looking more forward to our future than many. Hal Wagenet is the 3rd District Supervisor in Mendocino County. Thanks for joining me today. Let's talk about, in your role as sort of the interface between citizens and their local government, what are the trends that are going on in Mendocino that we could be looking at as models for other communities, other counties in our country?
Thank you, Janae. It's a pleasure to talk to you here today and to let folks take a look inside Mendocino County. Mendocino County is often thought of as being on the cutting edge of various trends, both social and environmental. I'm the supervisor that presides over what is known as the Emerald Triangle, where a huge amount of marijuana is grown and all its attendant social pluses and minuses and a peculiar income stream that nobody can seem to get a hold of, not to mention impacts on the roads. However, in this particular district lies the heart of what I would call the solar revolution. Some 15 to 20 years ago, people began being interested in living off the grid. A very large and vigorous solar industry has built up, centered in this little town.
It's pretty amazing. It's known all over. I mean, some of the Solar Living Institute and Real Goods and so on. I mean, it's got big reputation far and away.
That's true. And we have the highest percentage per capita of people living off the grid of any place on the planet.
Truly.
The folks that are dedicated to this lifestyle are dedicated for a combination of reasons. One is their pocketbook. They don't really want to be spending lots of money on the grid, and the other one is there's a strong feeling that being plugged into the corporate models and the massive marketing models, whether it be energy or imported goods or corporate farming, is really not the right way to live. The people that are at the root of this are the people that moved to San Francisco when I was playing rock and roll down there with It's a Beautiful Day.
Hey.
Little commercial there. In the 60s, these are people that moved in, tuned in, turned on, dropped out, and then thought, well, now what? And they moved north into this area in droves.
Beautiful redwoods. I mean, this is prime, beautiful water, good sun in the summer. I mean, I can see why.
They were driven by a combination of environmental concerns and political activism. My generation were folks that decided that what they had been hearing from corporate and political America didn't really line up with their ideals. And they were independent of thought, willing to stand up and speak for what they thought was right. There is a strong leaning towards organic farming and an organic lifestyle. And the growing ecology movement or environmental movement was just then being seeded. The people that moved into this area were, as I mentioned, educated. They were often financially independent, and again, willing to actively put some of these things in place. They wanted theater. They wanted the arts promoted, and they wanted a lifestyle that they could be comfortable with for the future. I, as I mentioned, was in San Francisco during those times. I had left this town, and when I left this town, it was a resource extraction town based on the lumber industry. There were 13 sawmills in this town, and the smoky haze was down to your knees on most days. Today, there is only one sawmill left in the town, and the timber is not gone. It's in a recovering state because it is a renewable resource. Since 1960, we were grinding up sawdust, and we were the people that helped create the super soil industry by doing that. So we are no longer a resource-based economy, and this kind of leads into what the Willits Economic Localization Group is doing. We call that WELL for short. And the focus here is what can we do in the long term, and there's a secondary focus on the energy consumption aspect, and in particular the peak oil moment that everybody now agrees is inevitable. The only question is when is it coming, and have we actually passed it?
Right.
There's some folks that think it's right around the corner, and right around the corner in geologic time is anywhere in the next 30 years. And,
That's true.
And even the federal government would agree with that. Now, I became active in politics only 4 or 5 years ago, and am completing my first term as a supervisor in Mendocino County. I occupy the central position on our board of supervisors, and as is typical of our county, we are a divided house. We are very independent, and it's a great curse and a great blessing with two hands. The conservative side wishes to promote property rights, develop the property to the maximum possible dollar benefit. And the more progressive or environmentally conscious side wants to see smart growth, moderate growth, intelligent growth. Some even want no growth. But in all of that, I very often find myself as being the deciding vote on these things. So I take that position quite seriously. Land use planning is how supervisors control growth and what our county is becoming. Our county has a great difficulty, as many counties in California do, in articulating what we are becoming. One of the things that we are becoming is a retirement community.
And that's part of what we were talking about. It's true in my community. In our county, we have something like 60% of our population are retirees coming from the Bay Area, from Sacramento, and that changes what they expect of the services. And it also changes their sense of being connected to this place, since they've many just recently come here. Is that true here in Mendocino County?
That's true. Now, we're a little behind you in this trend, probably due to our accessibility and some of our development constraints, particularly water. But we have about a 20% senior population here now, but we expect in the next 15 years for that to approach 50%. That's a combination trend of the baby boomers such as myself who are about to start retiring, and people who are retiring from somewhere else. Now, what they bring economically to the picture, here's what they don't bring. They don't bring their children, because their children are grown and gone. They don't bring an active interest in the local economy because they have an independent source of income in the main.
Which is usually it's going to be outside of your community in pension funds.
They're either retired or in pension funds. They've sold their big house in the Bay Area and cashed out.
Right.
And they're capable of living without much interface to the local community except for the services that they require. And the types of services that they expect are libraries, theaters, entertainment, restaurants, good roads, good streets, police systems, fire and emergency systems, all of which are very difficult to deliver in a rural county, and all of which are not supported solely by property taxes. Without much industry, it's very difficult to provide such things. Mm-hmm. So we have a sort of a perfect storm brewing in terms of economic involvement from this service-heavy group that is about to dominate not only our local economy, but may come to dominate local politics as well. There's also, in our town, we understand that we need better medical services, and we're in the process of building a new hospital, and we've taken the step that it's going to have two features that are not that common in rural hospitals. First, you should understand that we are the critical care component in this area, and we're part of the UC Davis network. And speaking of networks, that is one of the things. We will have a strong telemedicine component to this, and I am the board's chief proponent of telekinesis. Connectivity in our county, our rural county, needs to replace our highway system as how we get information and business done. Driving around in 3,000-pound steel vehicles in order to attend a 30-minute meeting is not the way of the future. It can be done electronically, and it should be. I've proposed legislation at both the state and the federal level that would allow municipalities such as counties and cities to provide wireless broadband internet service to its constituents when the private sector finds it unfeasible to do so.
Excellent. Excellent.
But back to the hospital, besides the telemedicine aspect, it will be a green hospital. and it will be constructed and arranged in such a way that it has as small an energy footprint as is possible. In my own private life, my family has had a wood products business in this area that was a salvage industry for 52 years, and we've just closed that business due to the, let's call it the Walmartization of the lumber industry. California has an appetite of billions of board feet per year,
yes,
but
yes.
through our environmental protection legislation, we don't make it available locally, and we have in the past pursued policies that eliminated that as a resource. So we're mostly importing our lumber. At the same time, well, just for example, there were a number of sawmills, 13 sawmills in this area when I was a kid, and now there's just one. So my source of supply is very much diminished.
Sure.
At the same time, we had 40 or 50 customers throughout California and a variety of products. And today, at the point when we closed, we had one major customer, and that was Home Depot. So you see that this the small businessman is squeezed by these larger trends and really must begin to do something else.
Go ahead. I know you're headed here with mixed use, but I do want to mention that that notion of the Walmartization, that is, of sourcing things back to our communities from thousands of miles away, from China, from overseas, is of course predicated on that cheap oil that isn't going to be staying cheap. So
yes.
That's going to be a factor here in changing your economics, I would expect.
Well, the transportation network that makes our lifestyle possible is quite consumptive, as you know. The average foodstuff is transported about 1,500 miles. These are now becoming well-known facts.
But back to your place, your closed sawmill, your closed business.
Okay, my closed business. We have a 4-acre spot in the middle of town with 5 schools within 2 blocks of the area. In fact, within 2 blocks of where we sit right now in the Willits City Hall. There's only the city park between us and it. So we have proposed a variety of innovations that the city of Willits has been talking about and holding seminars about for a number of years. We proposed a walkable community, cluster housing, green buildings, 3-story workspaces. 3 stories is quite an innovation in Willits, which really tends to think of itself as a ranch-style community.
1 story, maybe 2 for some of the older buildings, and that's it.
But we're proposing a tightly clustered development, and the real focus of that is to create the open space and the walkable community opportunities, the green building and the solar access that we think is the way of the future. Chief in my mind and in my wife's mind, and I think in the community's mind, those who are really thinking about it, is to prevent rural sprawl, to prevent the traditional house with a 2-car garage, a backyard with a hot tub or swimming pool, and a white picket fence as being the model of what we consider proper living.
It's a few miles out of town that requires the big SUV to get back to town.
Yes, and again, you can walk or bike to dang near anything in Willits. It's not that big of a town. But the other thing that we are concerned about, and the Board of Supervisors has just rejected a large building proposal in our county seat of Ukiah, is that the infrastructure was mostly built about 50 years ago following World War II. It's either worn out or out of capacity or doesn't meet environmental regulations today, or all 3. That's the first problem. So the carrying capacity of our valleys is not well known and well documented, and we're not only in Willits but in the county working on getting that worked out. The other thing is that the large-scale developments that are so popular elsewhere, again, lead to what I call, and I'm just quite upfront about this, I call this the Walmartization of our construction industry. Because the folks that come in and build these houses are generally corporate building concerns. They're not the local mom and pop people. They get busy, they build, and then they're gone. Right. They export their money from the area, and at the same time, during the period that they're there, building, they have used up the water and sewer hookups. They've impacted the future fire and police services. And the little guy who was normally building little houses and doing remodels and making granny cottages is now out of business because he hasn't been able to compete with this big tsunami of development.
I had not thought about that aspect of Walmartization or corporatism in the building industry. But of course, yeah, all the money is not kept with the local in any way that they can keep themselves afloat for a while.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beyond that, we are a timber producing county, and the wood that comes in to build these houses doesn't come from here anymore. That's wrong.
I have a question. I've thought this. If this county were limited to building homes only from timber from your own county, how many could you build?
Far more than we need.
Far more than you need, right?
Well, I have a little 3-acre spot, and to make my driveway, I cut enough trees to make the driveway possible.
Right.
And I built a house that I milled the lumber myself and built 2/3 of the house with the lumber, and it was better quality than you could buy in any of the stores. Sure. I also did not, by simply looking at the way the land laid, I was not able, I was able to not do cuts and fills and so on and so forth. Basically left the earth pretty much as it should be, oriented it to the sun for passive solar heating, and probably pay about 20% the bill that most people would pay.
It's just if Mendocino County had to sustain itself in water, lumber, food, you'd have a good time with the wine. Could you feed could you feed your people? Or is that even a question that we could consider at this point?
Well, Janae, we can consider it. As far as water goes, we have plenty of water. Do we manage it well, store it well? We're in the process of working that out. We have plenty of timber. Regarding the wine, I really dislike defining our county in terms of our 2 major intoxicants.
Okay.
So,
but could you eat?
But I will tell you that there's been quite a focus on the eating aspect of things, the food production, food and fiber production, as we call it in the ag community. When the white man came into this area, the native population was about 30,000 people. Today, it is just under 90,000. So in the 100+ years that the Anglo community has been active, of course, the native population was first reduced and then replaced by immigrants, white, Latino,
Chinese,
yeah. More recently. So we have about 3 times what the population that was being supported with no agriculture, basically, a hunter-gatherer type of society. I believe that through modern farming methods, and by that I mean modern closed nutrient loop organic farming.
You're not talking about industrial agriculture here?
No, not in the main. That we could probably support 90,000 people. But I think the question becomes, and this is a philosophical question for those who are out there listening, is do you want to support that many people, and do you want to support more of them? Again, we have a current trend in terms of demographics of the senior population moving in, but eventually those of us who are now about 60 years old will shuffle off this mortal coil and be gone, and then be replaced by what? That's the trend that I try to look at. 50 years from now, what will the decision be? It's very popular in this county to talk about 7 generations or 7 years, 70 years worth of planning. I try to take the 50-year look. Our general plans are reviewed every 20 years. Our housing element is reviewed every 5 years. And these are by state statute. These are what the state of California calls long-range planning.
5 years?
5 years for the housing element, 20 years for the general plan itself. I have called for a water element to be included into our general plan. I'm the first supervisor to do that and to raise that to that level of importance. It'll cost us more. The county was already embarked on a general plan review before I came on the board. But my question is, what will it cost not to do it? What will it cost? Well, the development side of the community, including my opponent in this current political race, the election that is now before us, would like to take Eel River water and export it into the Russian River Valley. Well, that could certainly be done physically, but what would that do? It would promote development in the southern part of our county and in Sonoma County. Development that can't be sustained indefinitely. Development that now seeks a bedroom community in the form of Mendocino County, increasing the housing pressure beyond what it already is to an untenable level.
And all the services that they require, just as you mentioned earlier.
All the other trends come cascading along with it.
What about, let's turn for a second to energy. What's Mendocino County doing, thinking about, is oil may peak now or later, but certainly the prices are up.
Prices are up, Janae.
That? And don't look to be going down in any time in our lifetime.
Well, I have friends that live in Europe, and they laugh at our concept that $3 gas is a big deal. They say we should expect $6, and I'm sure we will someday.
But that's going to impact your county costs of operation.
It will. So what are we doing on the county? We have 1,100 miles of roads in the county. 800 miles are paved, 300 miles are not paved. I've promoted a dirt road policy because the cost of stabilizing the earth on dirt roads is about 30% fuel today. We expect it to be 50% in the near future. So when you talk about a dirt road policy, you want to use outsloping drainage methods and not be creating culverts and so on and so forth, and use rolling dips. These are technical terms that allow you to build and construct a road with less energy. I am on the Public Resources Committee, which is a subset of the Board of Supervisors, and we are right now developing what I call an E-policy or energy policy. We are looking at, within our county system, how do we manage our fleets? And we're reviewing a policy that's already in place. Great strides have already been taken, but in the light of current trends, we're reviewing and upgrading and incentivizing within our own system the operation of our buildings and our fleets. I'm also proposing in our general plan that we incentivize green building all that we possibly can. Yesterday in our committee, I proposed that we require all new building to have a grid intertie built in.
Okay. So they can
those are the kinds of things that we're doing.
Be set up so that if they get solar or wind or some other local generation, that it ties back into the grid, and this helps. Okay.
In this county, there's also a strong focus on biomass and cogeneration because we produce so much wood that we have to do something with it, otherwise we create fire hazards. I'm on the Fire Safe Council, which seeks to improve the wildland-urban interface and create fire-safe homes. So politically, I'm quite active in moving these things towards a more sustainable future. In the long term, government creates opportunities, and private citizens must step into the breach. So the public-private partnership is quite important. The solar trends that I've outlined here and the demographics that have created these environmentally conscious trends and that have created the appellation known as Measure H, or a GMO-free zone in our county, are all indicative of folks that want to partner up with government. If you haven't heard already, the Well Group, on a volunteer basis, did an energy audit for the entire city of Willits and determined what we were spending for imported energy. We proposed that very same process yesterday in my committee meeting.
For the county?
For the county.
Excellent.
We are considering joining the ICLEA proposal, which is and I can't give you the acronym, but it is an association of cities that seeks to reduce greenhouse gases.
Oh, that have done the voluntary,
yes,
voluntary climate change.
But where this supervisor sits today is that I am a man of action, not of fluffy statements. And in our committee, we decided that we would not just run up a hot air balloon, but we wanted to implement strategies that actually got us in this direction. So that's a little bit about myself in Mendocino County.
Well, you know, you're doing some positive trends that are going to be cutting the edge forward for many of our counties. I hope that in our last 2 minutes here, what would you say to my county supervisors or other supervisors, and what should they be looking at, and why now?
Well, to my fellow supervisors, to my peers in local government is the only place where you have a true interface with your populace today. The state and federal governments are insulated rather than connected to the people they're trying to serve. So listen to the people, and they are a terrific resource. We have found that the volunteer efforts in Mendocino County are beyond what we can pay for with $30,000 consultants, people that show up with briefcases from somewhere else and give you a spreadsheet after a few weeks.
And they go away too.
Yeah, that you're exporting money and you're not getting the real information. The real information is already there in your county. Another thing is that your senior population, which we bemoaned here, these are people that have been successful in their lives to some degree, and many of them bring a terrific resource in terms of knowledge and experience. That can be mined, and it should be mined. They should become the local consultants that you rely on most heavily. And I'd go a little bit beyond that, although we think of us, the budding retiree community as being not really connected economically and having independent support systems. In reality, not all of us can make it on our retirement. And we also need something to do that makes us feel worthwhile. That's a terrific resource. And as we are finding out, not only energizing the dropouts that changed the face of Mendocino County, but the folks that are moving in, I think is going to be create a knowledge base in that will help us answer a lot of these questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hal, and good luck in your election.
Thank you, Janae.
Join us on Peak Moment for the next edition. Thanks for watching.